Believe it or not, I actually had a positive interaction with an attractive woman. It actually kind of seemed like maybe she was into me. Her coworker seemed to think she was. I don't know if she said something to her or what. I might actually see her tomorrow too. But anyways, I just spent another 24 hours touching grass and it went a lot better this time. The only person that insulted me all day was some random kid at the park. And like I already mentioned, a woman was nice to me. So that alone makes this a better day than yesterday. I did have an awkward moment at the hotel pool, or I don't know if awkward is the right word, but I think these girls thought I was checking them out or something. But let's start from the beginning. In case you missed my last video, I'm on a trip right now with my mom and my baby cousin. Yesterday, we went to the aquarium, and my cousin and my mom both thought it would be a good idea to tell the black girl working at the gift shop that she's black, as if she didn't already know that. My cousin is 2 years old, so that's his excuse. My mom is just retarded, though. Also, I stepped in dog crap, so yesterday sucked, but today was a lot better. By the way, if you're wondering what this gameplay is you're seeing, it's a game called Hood Tales Part 1 Morocco. It'll be in early access soon. There's a link in the description to the Steam page. Check it out. Add it to your wish list if you think it looks fun. And shout out to Silver Diamond Softwares for sponsoring this video. So the first thing I did today, as soon as I woke up, my mom and my cousin were down in the lobby having breakfast, so I used that time to record my last video in the bathroom. Then I went down to put my microphone back in the car, and when I was going back up to my room, I got in the elevator and there was a hotel employee in there. I think he was in housekeeping, actually, which seems weird because it was a guy, but that's what his uniform looked like. Anyway, so I walked onto the elevator and this guy was like, "Hey, how are you?" So I said, "I'm good. You?" And he goes, "I'm doing great. It's a fantastic day. I have a good job. It's a beautiful day. There's so much to be thankful for." And the way he said it, like, he didn't sound very convinced about it. He sounded like he was trying to convince himself that he's doing great. I mean, objectively, he was coping, saying he has a good job. There's no way that's a good job. But good for him, if he's happy with it. To me, it sounded like he was coping. And I actually ran into the same guy again a few hours later, and he was still coping about how great his life is. That was actually pretty funny. But also, this is why I always try to use the stairs instead of the elevator. The last thing I want to do is be stuck in an enclosed space with some random strangers. I always fuck it up too. Like last night, I got on the elevator and there was two attractive young ladies in there. And as soon as I walked in, I could already tell they looked uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable too because I could tell my presence was making them feel uncomfortable. Then the elevator stopped and they got out and I got out right behind them. But I was trying to go to the lobby. They were getting out on the second floor. So I just got out on the wrong floor. And I didn't even think about it at first. I was just in autopilot, I guess. So I just got out and kept walking behind these girls because it looked identical to the floor I was staying on. So I guess my brain just defaulted to thinking, okay, here we go, back to the room. But then one of the girls looked back at me and she immediately grabbed her friend's arm and looked at her, and then they both started walking super fast. That's when I realized, oh, wait, I was trying to go to the lobby. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. So I'm pretty sure they thought I was following them or something, or they were afraid I might be following them, which, whatever. I'm used to that reaction. But that was yesterday. Yesterday was a bad day. Today was a good day. My mom was having a spa day with one of her friends that lives in this area, so pretty much all day it was just me and my baby cousin. I didn't want to keep him cooped up in the hotel room all day, so I thought maybe we should try to find a playground somewhere. So I found a park that was close by, and then we drove to this park, and I don't know what was going on exactly, but there was only two other cars in the parking lot when I got there, but there was probably 100 kids there. No exaggeration. There was literally about 100 kids at this park. And I only saw like two adults. So I'm thinking maybe there's a school nearby that uses this park for recess because it was around noon, the middle of the day. There was for sure a high school near the park. I didn't see an elementary school, but either way, I got out of the car with my cousin and I carried him over to the playground. But as soon as I stepped on the playground, it was like all these kids are just staring at me like I'm not supposed to be there. This was a public park, by the way. I'm pretty sure about that. So, I don't know. It was weird. But my cousin refused to get down and play anyways. I think because he was just scared with all the kids around. Or I don't know if he's scared, but he's really shy around big crowds like that. So then I walked around the park a bit, just looking for a nice spot where I could try juggling my soccer ball I brought with me. But it was like, this park was pretty much all hills except for the playground and the baseball fields, which both of those had a bunch of kids on them. So I didn't want to do that because I was already feeling like maybe this park isn't open to the public. Maybe I'm intruding on an elementary school recess right now. I don't know. It was weird because, like I say, there was like 100 kids there, but there was only two cars in the parking lot. So I don't know where these kids came from. But I was walking around looking for a flat spot that didn't already have 50 kids running around on it. And I'm walking by and these two kids pass me and I hear this kid say, "Why's that weird guy just walking around with his kid?" So I turn around and these two kids are looking at me and I'm just looking back at the kid like, I didn't say anything, but I'm just looking at him like, bro, I obviously heard that. Then he just goes, "What, are you gay or something? Why are you looking at me?" So, what can you even do in that situation? This kid was probably 10 years old. I don't know if there's even any adult there with him. And I mean, maybe I really did just walk up into the middle of their school recess. Although I am 99% sure it is a public park. I just walked away back to my car and left. I just took the insult because what are you going to do? It's a child, I can't really say anything back. It was like the whole thing was really weird. I already felt uncomfortable and then this kid called me gay. It's probably a good thing I had a toddler with me because otherwise I really would have looked out of place. But I felt bad because all the way from back at the hotel, when I first told my cousin we're going to the park, he kept saying like, "Park, park, slide, wee," because he loves going to playgrounds. I didn't want to just leave when he didn't even get to play at all. But obviously, I didn't feel very welcome at that park. So I found another park that was about 10 minutes away. Of course, I get almost all the way there, then I noticed my cousin had fell asleep. But I figured I'd keep going anyways, and maybe he'd still want to play once he saw the playground. Then I was slowing down to turn, and all of a sudden, a freaking stampede of deer runs across the road right in front of me, which was really cool to see. Obviously, I've seen deer before, but it was like 6 of them, and they were right in front of me, probably 2 car lengths away. I don't know, I guess it doesn't sound that interesting now that I'm saying it out loud, but it was pretty cool to see. So anyways, we get to the park, and it has this enormous playground, and there's not 100 kids there already. In fact, there was nobody there. So I parked and got out, but then I noticed there's a sign on the fence that says the park is closed for the next 2 weeks so they can redo the turf. So at that point, I just gave up. The little guy was already asleep anyways. I tried. I tried to make the day fun for him. I mean, ultimately, I did end up having a good day. We both did, I think. But literally touching grass just wasn't going to be happening. But that's all right, because it wasn't long after that that my day got a lot better. So we got back to the hotel. We just relaxed for a bit while my cousin was napping. Then I decided to go to Barnes & Noble because it was close to the hotel I figured we could just hang out there for a while and I could read him some books. For my non-American viewers, Barnes& Noble is a bookstore. So we went to Barnes& Noble and I picked a bunch of books I thought my cousin would like. Then we went and sat on a bench and I was reading to him. So I was reading him this Curious George book. Curious George Goes to the Aquarium, because we had just went to the aquarium yesterday, so I figured he might like that. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, when we were walking in, there was a beetle on the sidewalk, and my cousin pointed at it and he said, "Black one." So he's still doing that. Hopefully it doesn't get me into any more trouble. But anyways, so I'm reading in this book, and there was a girl that works there stocking shelves or something. We finished the book, and then my cousin was like, "Read again, read again." So I read it to him again, and then he's saying, "Read again, read again." So I said, "Well, why don't we read another book now? We already read this one twice." Then this girl that works there said, "They love to make you read the same story over and over, don't they?" So I said, "Yeah, this one does." So then she started asking me all these questions, how old was he? And she was asking me if we'd been to the aquarium, because I guess she heard I was reading him a book about an aquarium. So we were talking for a while, and she was just being really friendly, like way more friendly than I'm used to women being to me, because I'm used to women not being friendly to me at all. In fact, being the opposite in most cases. And I will say, I was with a very adorable toddler, so it's definitely possible she just likes babies, because most of the conversation was focused around him. But at some point, actually pretty early on in the conversation, she said something like, "I don't have any of my own, by the way. I just spend a lot of time with my nieces." And so I told her that, yeah, he's not my son, actually. He's my cousin. So maybe this is just me overthinking it, but it almost seemed like she made it a point to tell me that she doesn't have any kids. Because there's not really any reason for her to specify that to me. So that's the first thing that made me think, okay, maybe she's trying to let me know that she's single. Or at least, maybe she wants me to know that she doesn't have any kids, because most guys don't want to date a woman that has kids. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but there was other things too. I'm trying to think. I mean, she was being kind of flirtatious the whole time. Oh yeah, and the biggest thing was my cousin kind of walked over to where she was and he started to grab some book out of her little book cart. I don't know what the book was, but she said, "Oh, Daddy probably wouldn't want you to read that one." And then she was like, "Oh, wait, that's right. I guess I shouldn't call you Daddy." Because I had already told her I'm not his dad. But then she was like, she said, "I guess I shouldn't call you Daddy." Then she goes, "We don't know each other that well." And she laughed. So I just kind of laughed. I couldn't think of anything good to say to that. But I mean, am I crazy, or is that not a very flirtatious joke? Like it's a sexual joke in nature. It puts the image in your head of me and her boinking and her calling me daddy. So that seemed like a very flirtatious joke. But at the same time, her body language seemed really closed off. Or I don't know, it just seemed like she wasn't interested based on her body language. So I don't know. Also, I kind of got the vibe that she's mildly autistic. Just something about the way she talked. Like she talked too loud at times, but she was also kind of monotone. So maybe that, she just says weird things like that because of her autism. And there's actually another reason I think maybe she was flirting with me. I'm about to get to that in a minute. But yeah, I do think she was attractive. She wasn't a stunner. Most of you probably wouldn't even think she was attractive at all, but you got to understand, I'm old and I have been chronically alone for a long time. So I don't have high standards. And I'm not saying she was ugly or like, I think she was attractive, but I'm just saying she was probably, I think she was younger than me, but she had to be at least late 20s. And again, I don't know what it is, but every girl is goth now. That's actually the main reason I think she was probably younger than me, because most women my age are not goth. She wasn't really goth, but she was like mild goth. Maybe a better word is just to say she was alternative in style. She was dressed kind of nerdy, I guess, or girl nerdy. She was wearing jeans and I guess you would call it a cardigan, something like a cardigan. But she had a septum piercing, which obviously is a red flag. Not that, I'm saying red flag like that would even matter. I don't even live around here. I'm obviously not going to be dating this woman. But yeah, she had a septum piercing, and I could see she had a tattoo on her wrist. And the other girl working there was goth, like full on goth. I guess that's a trend now. I don't know. I don't remember there being this many goth girls even like 2 years ago. There's more goth girls now than there has ever been. Tell me in the comments if you disagree. Like, I think I'm noticing something. But yeah, so we talked for probably 10 minutes at least. She probably would have stood there and talked to me longer, but my cousin started fussing at me because he wanted me to read to him again. That's the only reason she went back to work. But anyways, so after I read a couple more books, I picked out a book to buy. So I went to pay for it, and the goth girl that was checking me out, she kept she was smiling, but in a way where she's kind of trying to act like she's not smiling, if that makes sense. And then she was like, "So I see you met Jessica." That's not actually her name, but I'll just call her that for the video. So she was like, "I see you met Jessica." And I said, yeah, I did. So then she just didn't say anything for the next 30 seconds or however long it took to ring up my purchase and everything. Then she asked me if I needed a bag, and I said, "No, thank you." Then I'm starting to walk out, and she goes, "She's single, by the way." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Jessica's single, just in case you were wondering." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." I, I didn't know it because I didn't know what to say to that. And I left. So, yeah, I don't know if the girl I was talking to had said something about me to the other girl, or maybe this girl just saw us talking and she was picking up on something. But either way, at the very least, that would mean that the goth girl was picking up on some sign that Jessica was into me. So, I'm not getting my hopes up, because even if she was attracted to me, this place is probably a few 100 miles away from where I live. It took us, I think, 5 hours to drive here. So it wouldn't even be realistic for us to get together. But it was nice, just having a woman actually talk to me like that, talk to me like I'm a human being friendly with me, and maybe even a little flirtatious if I'm assessing the situation correctly. It's a big confidence boost, if nothing else. But that's also why I think she's probably on the autism spectrum, because she was acting like that towards me. Because I don't think any normal woman would be flirtatious with me. Or, I mean, I know from experience throughout my whole 37 years on this planet that no normal female is even going to be nice to me, apparently. But yeah, I probably will go back there tomorrow. I was already planning to go back there before I even met this girl, just because it's a good place to pass the time with my cousin. So maybe I will see her again. But even if I don't, it was a good experience. Even just talking to her, I didn't feel as much anxiety as I usually would because she was being so friendly. So it was just a nice experience overall. So after that, I went to check out the pool at the hotel because we did bring all my cousin's swimming stuff, but I didn't know if the pool would actually be warm enough. So I just went down there to check. My mom was back at the hotel by this point, by the way, so it was just me by myself going to the pool. So there was some girls in the pool, which I almost just left as soon as I walked in and saw them because I didn't really want to go put my leg in this small hotel pool when it's like before I got there, it was just these teenage girls there by themselves. I felt like I was intruding a bit, but I went in anyways. So I just walked over to the side of the pool furthest away from where they were. I sat down and I just put my legs in the pool. Then I was sitting there for a minute because, you got to let your skin get used to the temperature before you know if it's actually a good temperature. So I was sitting there for a little bit before they even noticed me. Then one of the girls saw me, I guess, and she literally screamed like she was scared. I don't even think she did it on purpose. I think that was just her natural reaction to seeing me. But then basically they all kind of just got out of the pool really fast and they started putting their towels on and everything. But at that point, I had already decided I didn't think it was warm enough. We didn't really have that much time either before him and my mom were supposed to go to dinner. So I got up and I was leaving the pool area. And when I turned to leave, one of the girls didn't have a towel around her. But when she saw me, she grabbed the towel her friend had around her and she pulled it over to herself and she held it up in front of both of them like she was trying to hide their bodies from me, which really was not necessary. I was not checking them out at all, but it was just very exaggerated how she did it. Like, she just couldn't stand the thought of a guy like me seeing her in her swimsuit that she voluntarily chose to go out in. That's the thing too. If a certain class of man looking at you makes you uncomfortable with the way you're dressed or the way you are uncovered, then maybe you just shouldn't wear that. I don't know. You call me crazy, but that's what I think about that. And, usually something like that would really make me feel like shit. I mean, it did, but I still feel good overall about the day as a whole, just because of the experience with the girl at Barnes & Noble. That was such a confidence boost. I mean, honestly, that one thing because the rest of the day wasn't good, really. It was fine. It wasn't like the worst day of my life. It wasn't even as bad as yesterday. But the one experience, just having a nice conversation where I didn't feel super socially anxious like I usually would, and this woman that I find attractive was maybe flirting with me, that I feel really good about that, honestly. Now, maybe I was completely misreading the situation, but like I said, her friend or coworker or whatever, she told me that she's single, so it seems like that girl must have been picking up on something. If not, if the girl I talked to didn't just directly tell her to tell me that she's single. So yeah, I gotta say, it was a good day. I didn't even have to use my AK. If you found the video entertaining, please consider watching some of my other videos. This was actually kind of a part 2 to my previous video, so if you didn't see that one, then I would suggest checking that out. There's also some secret videos you can watch for free on my Patreon, videos YouTube doesn't want you to see, so check that out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.